Hello and good evening everyone. Are you ready for some more OCD? As you can see, I've got my book and I have with me therapy dogs again. So, without further ado, while I get more comfy, let's begin, shall we? Hope you remember where we were last time. If not, feel free to go back to the last video. In case you're wondering which one it is, it's the one which is one number less than this one. Tackling behaviours and beliefs that keep a contamination problem going. Now you remember what this is, don't you? Contamination OCD, otherwise known as being a bit of a germaphobe. Earlier, we identified some of the common behaviours that keep a contamination problem going. You'll see how standing up to the OCD and not doing all your washing, avoiding and so on allows you to find out what happens. How the world really works. You can also find out if you do feel as anxious as you predict. Now, my prediction, as someone who was a bit of a germaphobe, I mean, you could probably call this contamination OCD. I was very paranoid about things. Slightest little thing, I was like, I've got to wash my hands. Sometimes it comes back, but I've mostly got it under control. The thing I've learned is that when I have challenges, is that nothing bad happens. You know, you don't have to wash your hands every freaking moment of your life. Sometimes you just got to say, I don't need to wash. You know? Of course, you got to practice basic hygiene, but you don't need to wash your hands every moment that life gives you or every time you do one thing. Because at the end of the day, nothing bad will happen. Obviously, there are immunocompromised people who will suffer consequences if they don't practice such things, but for most of us people that aren't, you don't need to wash your hands every 5 seconds. And so we have a chart. And see, I'm going to read this. Safety seeking behaviour. Washing hands or other body parts or inanimate objects in a repetitive, ritualised way. As you know, we just spoke about this when I spoke about hand washing. How does it keep the problem going? Once lengthy washing starts, any shorter or less comprehensive washing doesn't feel enough. Rituals and repeating don't make things any cleaner. The only result is feeling more anxious. So what do? Don't wash. Did your predictions come true? Did anything bad happen? Were you as anxious as you predicted for as long as predicted? See, that's the thing, I found when I challenged it, I was a little bit anxious, but as soon as I done things, it just wasn't really much of a thought. You know? And afterwards I was fine. Nothing bad happened. So, another safety seeking behaviour. Using how your hands feel to work out when to stop washing. How does it keep the problem going? This is a dangerous way to decide to stop washing. The more anxious you feel, the more you feel dirty. The more you wash, the more anxious you feel. It's like how... Actually, you know what? I'm going to talk about this once I finish the last bit. What to do about it. Lick hands or touch other people with hands that feel dirty. Actually, don't do that, people, okay, unless you have express permission. You know, consent, otherwise known as consent. Don't just go around licking random people's hands or just touching them, because, you know, people don't like that. So we're going to replace that with lick your own hands. Touch things. Touch your things, rather. Touch things that belong to you and not anyone else. Because, you know, if you share something with someone, then they might not appreciate you licking your hands and just touching it. So lick your hands and touch something that's yours, and only yours. So, if you do that, would your predictions come true? Would anything bad happen? Would you be as anxious as you originally predicted? See, until you try it, you won't know. But that's the whole point. Oh yes, I remember what I was going to mention now. Oh yes, I forget. It's amazing how I forget these things. I was going to say, when it said back to the problem of washing your hands until you think you're clean. The problem is, as I've learned, is that you cannot kill 100% of germs. If you buy a soap or cleaner of any sort, no matter how powerful it is, it will never say it kills 100% of germs. It will say kills things. I remember there was a time when they all said kills 99.9% of germs. You know, because you can't get 100%. And the OCD starts because you think you got that 0.1%, less than a percent, but it's still something. And you never know, that teensy tiny germ could be the most dangerous thing to ever live. I will say think about it, but we got more reading to do. Safety seeking behaviour, avoiding touching things such as door handles. How does it keep the problem going? By avoiding, you prevent yourself from finding out what would happen if you do touch these things, that actually you are unlikely to contract disease or spread it to anyone else. That is very true. But what to do? Don't avoid these things. Touch a handle, touch a door handle, people. Touch one. Not one of yours, obviously, because you know it's clean, but touch a random one. You know, say you're in a shop and you have to open the door, or you're at work and you have to open the door. Just touch the door handle. Give it a proper handle and open it or close it, whichever you're doing. And tell me, did anything bad happen? Did you feel anxious afterwards? Safety-seeking behaviour. Being on the lookout for trouble. Example, looking for red or brown marks. Monitoring yourself for other people for signs of ill health. Now, this is how you become a hypochondriac. I'll read on though. This is a form of selective attention. Once you start looking, you'll spot marks on objects that no one else would have seen. By throwing the objects out, because you know, better safe than sorry, you do not have the opportunity to find out that the marks on the objects were harmless. By tuning into whether anyone is showing signs of ill health, you will notice the smallest sniff or cough. That's very true. So what do you do about it? Pick up objects with red or brown marks. Obviously not those brown marks, obviously, but other brown marks, which are fine. But tell me this, when you've done it, will your predictions come true? Will you feel anxious? Or how anxious for that matter? All your behavioural experiments will help you challenge your beliefs about being responsible for preventing something bad happening. And it's correct. You know, the only way you'll challenge your OCD is by, or beat it, or overcome it, is by literally just challenging it. You know, like touching a door handle. Or licking your hand and touching something that belongs to you. And so we have another chart. Anxiety-related belief. I'm responsible for preventing the spread of contamination / dirt / germs. And stopping something bad happening, whether it be illness or death. What to do about it? Don't do any safety-seeking behaviours. Did your predictions come true? Did anything bad happen? Were you as anxious as you predicted for, or for as long as you predicted? Think about it. Anxiety-related belief. If there is a risk that something is dirty / contained, I must do something about it. How does it keep the problem going, you ask? By not taking the risk, you don't get to find out that naturally nothing bad happens. So what do you do about it? You don't do any safety-seeking behaviours. Of course, it's easier said than done, but you got to try. So, would your predictions come true? Would something bad happen? Would you be as anxious as you think you would? All worth thinking about, people. All worth thinking about. Contamination behavioural experiments. Troubleshooting. What if I die at some indeterminate point in the future from touching the bus door? That's a question. Suze was really pleased with herself for going on the bus for the first time in years. She was able to go out to see her friend Tony, who she hadn't seen enough recently. Day after, she actually forgot about her worries and realised she hadn't been thinking about whether she had flu or not. Then she had a horrible image of Tony dying and had a nasty feeling that maybe she had contaminated him with a deadly disease that had lurked in his body for a few years without symptoms, before making him horribly ill. She realised that she could not be 100% sure that this would not happen and felt very anxious. Now I get this is legitimate, because these things are not impossible. They're extremely rare, but they're not impossible, much like winning the lottery. Not all OCD beliefs can be tested with a single experiment. Zeus was able to find out that touching the bus door did not lead to her immediate death, but there is no way of testing that prediction that she or Tony would die in the future. What Zeus needed to do was tolerate uncertainty. She could not be absolutely sure that there was not a deadly disease on the bus. No one using a bus can have this certainty. Despite feeling anxious, what Zeus needed to do was ignore her thoughts about Tony dying, and not take any steps to try to feel less certain or to reassure herself. But I'm not anxious. I feel disgust when thinking about touching something dirty. You might find yourself curling your lip in disgust, or feeling angry that other people have been careless in a public toilet. I do. Seeing someone come out of a cubicle and not wash their hands is very rage-inducing. Very rage-inducing. Not that I do anything about it, of course. In those situations, take a moment to think about what is so bad about it. If all you feel is disgust for a short while, that is common and not a concern. However, if you carry the feeling of disgust with you for hours or days afterwards and take measures to get rid of it, through washing or avoiding situations in the first place, then ask yourself, if it's disgusting, so what? It is possible that there is another idea lurking in there. Perhaps that you'll transfer germs to other places, yet it will never be able to get rid of the disgust feeling. Behavioural experiments will be useful for challenging these beliefs. Research shows that disgust subsides when people confront their fears. But when I get physically dirty, I feel mentally dirty too. In chapter 2, we described mental contamination. The feeling of being with pollution or being dirty on the inside. Recently, psychologist Professor Jack Rackman pointed out the link between feelings of mental contamination and important formative experiences. It seems that we can feel contaminated and dirty because we have been treated like dirt when we were trusting. This feeling is dealt with by attempts to wash away the feeling, because the feeling is inside. But washing fails, of course. Discussing these issues with a therapist will be useful. See chapter 7. As described on page 48, 192 now, so you need to go back quite far. Some people it can be helpful to make the link between past offence and the internal feeling of pollution in order to understand why washing is in fact of no use. Having clearly made that link, treatment follows the same pattern as described in the rest of this book, including developing a Fisher's flower and carrying out behavioural experiments to test out the relative value of Theory B versus Theory A. Theory B would tend to take the form, my problem is that past offence made me feel dirty, violated and betrayed. This has made me wash too much even though I am not dirty. As noted above, often working in this way requires help from a therapist who specialises in OCD, so that you can work with them to build up your understanding of the problem, then use that understanding to overcome the OCD. The future. What happens if you continue to treat the contamination problem as one of worry? Once you have done some behavioural experiments, you should be able to see that the evidence points in one direction. That the contamination OCD has been bullying you into believing that there is a lot of danger around, and that you are responsible for preventing something bad from happening. If you really accept that the problem you have is one of worry and fear, and live accordingly by acting against your fears, we predict that the anxiety will over time decrease, and you will be able to abandon your obsessional ways. Once you take courage and do some behavioural experiments, you can find out for yourself that it really is possible to do things differently. Now you can incorporate that into your life. Begin to do some of the things that OCD has stopped you from doing for so long. Suze looked at her goals for the future. She wanted to start dating and get into a relationship and get a job. She had found both of these difficult as she had so little time to do anything other than washing her hands, and she had avoided going out. Now she had learned how the world really worked, she was able to go out and meet people and go to job interviews. She was able to make applications for all sorts of jobs without worrying about whether the workplace would be contaminated in some way. I like a happy ending, don't you, people? In the previous chapter, we looked in detail at the processes and reactions that keep a rumination problem going. We considered that the problem is one of many vicious circles operating at the same time, which fuel a sense that the thoughts are meaningful and important, and therefore keep the anxiety going. We have been looking at the example of Jeremy, who began to engage in a number of behaviours that fueled his central belief that he was a potential danger. The more he bought into this idea and acted accordingly, the worse and more severe his rumination problem became. It was suggested to Jeremy that there was an alternative way of thinking about his problem. There was one of extreme anxiety about danger, and that his measures to try to manage danger had actually served to make his anxiety worse. So Jeremy completed his Theory A and Theory B form. And we'll go through this, shall we? Theory A says, the problem is that I might harm my daughter. The evidence for this is that the thoughts make me feel very anxious. So if this is true, what do I need to do? I can't take a risk. I need to check myself for any signs I may act on the thoughts. I need to avoid contact with my daughter, avoid contact with all children, and I need to push the thoughts away and cancel them out. So what does this say about me? It says, the future. What does this say about the future? The future will be hard and difficult to maintain. To be safe, I must stay away from others. And what does this say about me? It says I'm a bad person. But let's go to Theory B, shall we? I like Theory B. Theory B. The problem is that I worry I might harm my daughter. The evidence for this is, feeling anxious is not evidence that I will act on the thoughts. The fact that the thoughts make me feel anxious means I do not want to act on them. So if this is true, what do I need to do? I need to see the thoughts as just thoughts and carry on with what I want to do with my life. Don't avoid anything, do more of it in fact. What about the future? The future looks bright. The future looks orange. Sorry, just thought I had to do it. I know I've just aged myself with that reference. Actually, if you get that reference, let me know in the comments. If you don't, also let me know in the comments. All helps. So what does this say about me as a person? It says that I'm caring and sensitive. Where to start? It's important that you identify the particular reasons that you think that in your case the thoughts are important, dangerous, or mean something bad about you, as this will help you plan experiments to test out these ideas. For Jeremy, one of the ideas that kept him anxious was his belief that the sheer amount of thoughts he was having meant that he was closer to losing control. As a result, he was trying to control his thoughts in various ways, such as pushing them out or reassuring himself and thinking good thoughts. He tried not to control his thoughts to test the impact on his beliefs and anxiety, to try to shed light on whether having more thoughts meant that he was more dangerous. And so we go back to Jeremy's behavioural experiment. The planned behavioural experiment. Alternate between controlling the thoughts as much as possible and try not to control them on different ways. The specific predictions and how much I believe them. While I don't try to control the thoughts, I will get too many of them to handle. Planned behavioural experiment. Try to count thoughts and rate anxiety. Predictions. I will feel very anxious. 100%. Predictions. Did these predictions come true? Day 1. Controlling. Lots of thoughts as usual. Anxiety 80% all day. Day 2. Not controlling. I still get the thoughts, but fewer over the day. My anxiety went from 80% in the morning to 30% by afternoon. I think I started thinking about other things. Day 3. Same as day 1. Day 4. Same as day 2. Conclusions. Engaging with the thoughts and controlling them makes them seem more real and makes me feel anxious. I also get many more. Trying to control them has actually made me less in control, as I haven't been able to do what I want. So does this fit best with theory A or theory B? This fits with theory B, where my worry about the meaning of the thoughts makes me react and gives importance to the thoughts, and I feel more anxious. But don't stop there. Once you have started kicking OCD out of your life, if you possibly can, really go for it. But Jeremy has meant fully letting go of trying to control the thoughts. Jeremy really tried to stand up to the OCD bully, made every effort to stop asking for reassurance. When he caught himself arguing and trying to prove to himself that he was not a bad person, he decided to say, well, maybe I am a bad person, and went and did something else, like playing with his daughter. Why is this such a useful thing to do to break free from OCD? Number 1. Build up evidence for theory B. It isn't just a fluke that Jeremy did not act in his thoughts when he stopped controlling them. He wasn't lucky this time, he took a risk and found out how the world really works. Number 2. Reclaiming your life. OCD has held you back and taken things from you. Take pride in standing up to the problem and being free to do what you want to do. You do not need to live in OCD's dictatorship, where there is a ban on socialising. Do what you like and go out when and where you please. 3. Protect yourself against future wobbles. Wobbles. Funny word, wobble, I think. If you have a bad day in the future, then you can think back and refer back to your notes. You can remember that you did all these fantastic things to overcome your problem. More on this will be in chapter 9, Life After OCD. And that, people, is enough for tonight. It is getting late. I am fairly tired. So, still, we don't want to keep these videos too long, I think, because it just makes it hard. Makes it hard to concentrate, I think. But doing these things in little bits is good. It's good for me, and it's good for you, the listener. Then again, if you want to watch more, you can. You can just, go 1, then 2, then 3, all in one bit, if you really like. But I wouldn't recommend doing so. And that's a stupid thing to say, because, this is my channel, and I benefit from you watching all these things. But anyway, I'm going to call this a night tonight. Hope you're well. Hope you're doing well. I hope you are breaking free from your OCD if you have it. Or if you don't have OCD, I hope you're learning something about it. So until next time, bye.